In April 2021, I took a pretty big leap of faith, leaving my stable job and life that I'd built up in the San Francisco Bay Area. There were a number of reasons for this. At that time I had not been home to the UK in over 5 years. I had been pretty isolated during the first year and a half of the pandemic, and my mother was also alone back in the UK at that time. And on the flip side, my YouTube channel had really grown enormously in the 6 months prior to that. And on top of that, I also finally launched Journaly, which is my foreign language journaling software platform that I had been working on for 3 years up to that point, and that was going really well. So since I had decided to leave my previous job, I was single, I didn't have any particular attachments in the Bay Area. It seemed like a rare opportunity to go home back to the UK for a year, get to really focus on my creative projects and see where I could take them and figure out what the next part of my life was going to look like. So today I want to tell you a story about my journey chasing that dream, why I've been basically gone from the internet for the last half year, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. So please grab yourself a nice drink, and I would love for you to stay till the end of the video because I do have a really special message that I want to leave with you today. Cheers. So right from the start, things just did not seem to go as I had planned them. There were so many unforeseen challenges and astronomical costs, and frankly, there were also just a lot of unfortunate circumstances. For example, I ended up living in this extremely old apartment in Bristol that had a lot of pretty serious problems that were sort of hidden under the surface that quickly came to light, and it just made it a bit of a nightmare living in that space for that year. So what was supposed to be this really magical, stress-free year, where I was gonna finally, for the first time ever, have not only the time to focus on my creative projects, but also the mental space and peace to really focus on doing my very best creative work, well, that just turned into this absolutely insanely stressful situation where I honestly was just really worried and anxious from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to sleep. Primarily financial stability. Because of those unfortunate circumstances and unintended costs that I mentioned, that meant that my runway had been drastically reduced compared to what I was expecting. And there was all this pressure to, put out the next YouTube video, put out the next Journaly feature. We had these insanely huge projects on Journaly, such as building out all the payments infrastructure and the first premium features so we could launch the premium version of the product so that Journaly could potentially start bringing in income. But I think for me, creating these things that I love, these YouTube videos, especially things like my documentary style pieces, it's an incredibly emotionally involved creative process. I put so much love and care into every single detail. And on top of that, during this period, one of my biggest goals was to not just make lots of videos, but to make the best videos I had ever made. And so I was actually actively studying filmmaking again, trying out new equipment, new camera angles, new techniques. I was making my workflow more robust. I was doing more research, more writing and preparation for every single video. And so these are all what I think of as creative risks, right? You have no idea how this is going to turn out. It's your first time doing that particular thing. And when you stack so many new things on top of each other all at the same time, it can be quite terrifying. And so I think that pressure that I talked about, right? This pressure to put the next video out, to build the next Journaly feature, is almost like a contradictory force to the kind of space and peace that I need to do my best work. And finally, while all this was going on, I actually was experiencing quite a lot of, I would say, reverse culture shock being back in the UK, and at the same time really missing the Bay Area, San Francisco in particular, and the life that I had built there. To be honest, I really just felt like a failure. And I think the more that time went on, the more the stress sort of built up, despite the things I was doing and accomplishing, it just felt more and more like I had failed that dream that I set out to achieve during that year. Now, on the positive side, during that year back in the UK, I made a lot of stuff. We fixed so many bugs on Journaly, we improved so many existing features, and then we built a ton of new features. We launched the premium version of the product. We actually conducted user research studies, and we actually took action based on the results. We dramatically dropped all of our pricing. We launched a student discount, all based on your feedback. The platform completely transformed from this really shaky beta release that had bugs and that was struggling to meet the needs of our users to being a relatively stable platform, and that is really special. And on top of that, like I said, I made a lot of videos. I also launched a secret podcast for my Patreon supporters. I gave them various things, like a special new design I made for our activity tracker for the book club, which I conducted 4 rounds, I think, of the multilingual book club with thousands of participants. But one thing I'm really proud of, honestly, for just myself last year is that I finally, after 7 years, I made my first new short documentary piece. In fact, I actually made 3 of them. And while they are far from perfect and, they have lots of things that they could be improved upon, but I honestly felt like in that moment, given my set of skills, my experience, the time that I had, and all the other things, I felt like that was my best work in that moment. And I felt like each one improved. I was like literally dancing. I couldn't hold back my excitement to just press publish when it was done, because I just couldn't wait to share with all of you what I had made. I was proud of what I was putting out into the world. And it was like, this is the kind of content that I've been dreaming of creating for almost a decade. And finally, while I have to admit it was quite difficult to fully appreciate this in the moment because of all the stress I was feeling and, as I mentioned, feeling kind of like a failure, I got to know a beautiful new city in Bristol. I fell in love with Bristol's San Francisco-like hills and colors, all the water, bridges, the boats, the different neighborhoods. I got to spend so much more time with my mother compared to the past 10 years combined, as she would come to visit me and we would explore the city together. And at the same time, honestly, the whole experience just really helped me to appreciate the life that I had actually built up back in San Francisco and the sense of belonging, and I would actually say home, that I had found there. And that's the last time that most of you saw me, over half a year ago. Basically, at a certain point, right towards the end of the year, I think I just finally accepted what I had been feeling for a number of months in my heart, which was, first of all, it was time to go back to the San Francisco Bay Area. Not only did I just really miss the lifestyle there, the people, the incredible culture, I also just realized that although I think I used to very often think of myself as being different, right? Because when I arrived in San Francisco, I really did feel very different. I think I realized while being in Bristol that I am so much more similar to the people in San Francisco, and I fit in so many more ways than I don't, and that I'm different. But I also just missed the stability that I had there, that indescribable feeling of going to bed at night and just knowing that everything is okay. And I think I realized that it didn't have to be this hard. Going forward, I don't need to be worried about putting food on the table next month or even next week. I don't need to be comparing every video to the last one and disappointed if it doesn't get enough views to put food on the table. I just wanted to go back to creating these things because I simply adore doing it and sharing these things with all of you and just trying to make the best little positive impact that I can while still having a stable, nice lifestyle. But there's one more thing, and this is the critical part. For many years, I had dreamed about one day experiencing working at a company like Google or Meta or Apple. And aside from these companies being notoriously difficult to get into for any position, the software engineering interview process at these companies is extremely computer science based. To be totally honest with you, that is a skill set and a background that I just didn't have. I don't come from a computer science background. I have never even done a boot camp. All of my software engineering skills that I have gained have all been from just teaching myself how to build stuff. I cannot explain to you, honestly, how far away I was back in December when I started that process from being able to successfully interview at any of those companies. And that's why I had to stop making videos, because I basically started studying, an unbelievable array of online courses. Basically from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to sleep, it was like if I wasn't studying for these interviews, I felt guilty. I felt like I wasn't doing as much as I possibly could. I solved hundreds and hundreds of algorithm problems on different platforms. I did mock interviews, real interviews, came super close and failed a couple times. I just didn't have any of that vital sort of creative energy and spirit that I have that is so necessary to make these videos. I just didn't have any of that to give. Finally, that brings us to the present, and I am so excited to share with you some really exciting news. Hang on, I gotta get something. I got the job at Google! Wait, let me get my hat. Oh yeah, there we go. So, of all the companies I interviewed at, Google has always been my absolute favorite, my top choice, and I'm so happy to tell you that I am officially a new clerk. So after many months, it was a total of just over 5 months of studying like a madman, I did get my sort of top choice position at Google. I have to say, it's just been absolutely magical. I couldn't be happier. And I'm just so grateful every single day that it worked out. And so with that, I am actually back in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it really just feels like a fresh chapter of my life and my story here. And so, honestly, the biggest thing missing from my life and just feeling whole again has been creating content for all of you. And before I kind of get into the conclusion and the overall message of this video, I do want to say that to all of you as a sort of collective audience, and especially those of you who have been watching my content and supporting me for a long time, I gotta say, I love you all, honestly. Like, these last few months have honestly just made me reflect so much on the fact that one of the favorite things I have really done in my career so far, and one of the most fulfilling things, has been creating content and engaging with all of you and seeing all of your feedback over the years and getting all of your messages and seeing those of you who show up to my live streams or support me on Patreon, who bought my book or who sign up on Journaly, and just who leave me comments and let me know how any of the things I've made make you feel, or maybe have made you smile. I just can't tell you how special all of that is to me and how much I've missed that over the last half year. So I will be posting not only on YouTube again, I will also be on Instagram, and I'm also back on Patreon. So like I said, links to all that down below. So before I go, I would like to jump back to something I said earlier when I told you that I really felt like a failure last year while going through that situation back in Bristol. Like, I completely failed that dream of, going back to the UK, spending a year building stuff, making videos, better videos, shooting documentary style pieces, building Journaly features, launching the premium version of the product, getting to know a new city, and spending time with my mother. Well, I have 2 points that I would like to leave you with today. As I reflected in the good stuff chapter of this story, I realized that, when I think about all the things I actually did accomplish last year, it kind of ticks all those boxes, all the things that I actually wanted to accomplish. Now, it definitely was a much harder year than I expected. There were so many more challenges than I thought, and it was a hard year. But it seems awfully strange to call that a failure. And secondly, even if we do consider some aspects of that story, like I failed in certain areas, that failure made space for something so much better that I couldn't really have imagined before. I don't think I would have finally decided to go for it and to chase other dreams like working somewhere like Google if that all hadn't happened. And so I think that this is just another friendly reminder that while we are often so afraid of failing and falling down, right, if we chase our dreams and take those giant leaps of faith, the reality is that even when we do fail and we fall down, oftentimes that just creates space for even better things that we may not have imagined before. And I think when we actually reflect and look back, we often see that we didn't really fail at all. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you back here very soon.